Bitchspot Report. Welcome to the Bitchspot Report, the conservative atheist podcast that's not afraid to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Every week, your hosts, Cephas and Mike, will take on the latest religious and political news and examine the world around us from a distinctly conservative and skeptical perspective. Join us now for this episode of the Bitchspot Report. Here we are again with another exciting episode of the Bitchspot Report. I'm your host, Cephas, and with me as always is my co-host, Mike.
Hello, everyone.
Today we've got a very busy show planned. We're doing some news, we're doing some Conservatism 101, we're doing a main event, we're doing all kinds of stuff. So it should keep us moving along at a nice, healthy clip. So how's the week going so far?
Not bad at all.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm a little tired. Work's been nuts. At least the holiday kind of helped things along a little bit.
Yeah, I never mind a holiday. You know, it was just nasty and miserable here. It was kind of raining and very humid and very hot. It was just really sticky the whole weekend.
Yeah, we had some rain on Saturday. But other than that, I think I got some sleep and tried to get some stuff done. I
got lots of sleep. I got nothing done. I was just like, I'm going to sit around and listen to podcasts. That's about it. So I listen to every damn podcast I listen to. That's about it.
Got caught up.
Yeah, I finally got caught up, and by next week I'll be way behind again, but hey, whatever. All right, well anyway, before we get started, I wanted to get into that little nonsense regarding Rebecca Watson, Surly Amy, and the idiotic atheism plus entitlement morons in a segment we call Things That Piss Us Off. Now, over the past weekend, the East Coast's biggest science fiction and fantasy convention occurred, DragonCon. For years now, it's also had a skeptical track, which, unfortunately, has been run by a lot of the same people who would later come up with the atheism plus nonsense. Apparently, over the years, Rebecca Watson and Surly Amy have set up a free table at the fandom section of the dealer's room with the specific goal of making back the money they spend to attend the con. Watson, at least, gets a free membership. That's about $130 value because she speaks at a couple of panels. But she also wants her airfare and hotel room paid for. Therefore, she thinks she gets to violate DragonCon's rules and has apparently got away with it for several years. This year, however, when several paying dealers objected, she and Amy were instructed to pack up their table and leave, and the internet lit up with outraged, entitlement-happy liberal idiots who think that she gets to break the rules because she's Rebecca Watson. Well, sorry, it just doesn't work that way.
It does not work that way. I mean, you're supposed to play by the rules, and, you know, maybe no one ever complained until now. And finally they say, hey, you can't be doing this. Or who knows, but whatever it is, I mean, if I'm reading the articles right, you know, we're talking about that Surly Amy ceramic jewelry that I guess she was selling, and that had nothing to do with what they were promoting, and got called out on it. Were they asked to just cease and desist?
Yes, they were. And they didn't do it.
They didn't do it, so they got kicked out.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, that seems totally fair. I mean, you know, if you're breaking the rules, you know, they're going to ask nice, you know, hey, you can't do that here at this table. You know, you need to have a paid table to do that, and it sounded like the tables might not have been that expensive anyhow, but they were asked nice, and they said no, and this is okay, then you're going to have to leave, and that's only fair. It's fair to the you know, the vendors who, you know, they spent the money to buy booth space. I don't know exactly how it all works at these things, but you know, they buy space. I mean, I'm sure it's by, you know, a 10 by 10, 10 by 20, you know, and there are going to be costs involved. They spent the money. They did, you know, they did everything the right rules and reasons, and because it's Rebecca Watson and Surly Amy, they can violate these rules.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for people who don't go to these things, I mean, I'm kind of like an old pro. I've been doing this stuff since the early 70s. At these conventions, and I'm not going to speak specifically about DragonCon. I haven't gone to that more than a couple times over the years. But for most conventions, they do set up an area for small fan groups, small conventions, etc., where they give them a free table specifically to promote their event or to promote their group. They do give them permission to sell specifically branded items, meaning things with their names on it. You know, you can sell a t-shirt with your convention's name on it. You can sell keychains with your whatever on it. I mean, there's like the Brown Coats, the Firefly fans, the 501st, the Star Wars Stormtroopers. Those are the kind of groups that end up at these tables. And they're not there to make money. The tables do not exist to make money. The tables exist to get the word out and to draw members, etc.
Network and all
yeah,
that. Yeah,
exactly. That's why they're there. But Rebecca and Amy figured, what the hell? She's got this Skepchick quote unquote brand name, and she signed up and she got a table, and she's apparently done this for a couple of years, and she thinks that she gets to just sell anything that she wants to sell to recoup costs that she really doesn't have the right to recoup. I'm sorry if it's too expensive for you to go, but that's life. Now, I go to these conventions. I am, to use her terminology, an attending professional. You know, I haven't paid to get into a convention in probably 20 years, but I still pay my own transportation. I still pay my own hotel costs. I pay everything. That's all out of pocket. I don't get any money for that. The only people who ever get money for that kind of stuff are either the really huge names that are being courted by the conventions to bring in lots of people, or maybe the people who work for NBC, who are on an NBC TV show, who are there for a panel, who NBC pays their way. Otherwise, everybody pays their own way. And Rebecca Watson seems to think that she gets special treatment because she's Rebecca Watson. Well, fuck Rebecca Watson.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say anything more on that. I mean, it's just, you know, there's some type of privilege. I mean, because she's Rebecca Watson, the rules don't apply to her. And apparently, going back to all the stuff that seems to be, that she attracts, all the negative that she's been attracting lately, you know, it's all, I'm the special one, you're not type of attitude. And it's really, I mean, to me, it's worn so thin. I mean, I don't even know why I even still listen to, you know, the stuff she does.
I never would. I don't.
I don't spend any time on Skepchick unless there's somebody say, hey, check this out. She's being stupid again. But that's about it. The most I'll ever spend any time on that website. I like A Skeptic's Guide to the Galaxy. I mean, she's not great on that show, but, you know, I guess it's okay. But I don't think she really adds much to the show. It's really the novellas, you know, they seem to be the smarter ones of the bunch.
Yeah.
Know. I mean, I don't understand how she's become this, other than maybe a martyr, you know, for, feminism. Maybe that, like I said, I don't know.
Yeah, well, let's be honest. You know, when she was going to Dragon Con, she was attending as an attending professional victim. Because that's all she is. And you notice they were warned once. Somebody went over there and said, you can't do this, showed them the rule. So they can't say they didn't know, showed them the rule that they were violating, and then went away. And they agreed that they were going to stop selling things that didn't have their logo on it or that were not specifically related to their cause. They turned around and kept selling things because they really didn't have anything to sell that had their logo on it. Most of the stuff they were doing, you got Surly Amy and her stupid jewelry, and you got Rebecca doing t-shirts, and 99% of it does not have the Skepchick logo on it, which is what they agreed to sell when they were given that table. The convention people went away, came back the next day, said, you're still violating the rules. You know, we're going to have to ask you to leave. And they sat and they argued with the guy. And then they started going, well, he was threatening us. Well, no, he was saying, you guys are ignoring me. I'm going to go get my boss, and he's going to probably come over here, throw you off your table, and throw you out of the convention. And yeah, they don't want him to do that. They, you know, just obey the person who's there and be done with it. But they went and they started tweeting the shit out of things, you know, and they started blaming everybody but themselves.
Yeah,
I don't get that. They blame everybody but themselves.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way it works nowadays. I mean, blame the convention, blame the vendors who were probably pointed it out. I don't know if they brought out, you know, said, well, those men over there, you know, it was men who kicked us out, you know. us women, it's just this ridiculous, like they're being persecuted. And in a way they are, because they're asking for it. They've stuck their foot in their mouths so many times. And I don't think they understand that, there's a real world out there, people. I mean, hey, I'm all for equal rights for everybody, equal pay, all the wonderful things that feminists are asking for. But just don't play this, we're pressed type stuff. There's, you're alienating a portion of people who I would like to support their cause, but I can't because they're just so stupid. They behave like children. I'm not going to support children.
Yeah.
If they're going to act like kids, I mean, there's somebody a little bit who behave more like an adult. Hey, I'm all for it, but, this is all a bunch of little kids who, they get on their blogs, they get on their Twitter accounts, they get on their Facebook and, oh, it's so terrible what they did to so and so. It's like, and then when you say, well, what really happened? And you start questioning that, and then you become the bad guy. It's like, I have to say, hey, kudos to Dragon Con for standing up for their rules.
Hey, I personally hope next year Dragon Con conveniently forgets to invite her to speak at the events.
At the rate she's going, I mean, isn't she being is there something coming up that she's not being asked to be at? I thought I read something about that. I may be up,
Well, if so, she deserves it.
I know, yeah. But I think I think I saw something about a conference that she's not being invited to.
Well, that's entirely fine with me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've run that into the ground.
Yes.
Yeah. It is what it is.
Yeah.
We'll just wait for the next stupid thing she did. Didn't you say there was going to be something stupid that she was going to do this week? Last week?
It's possible.
Well, that was PZ. Okay. Well, somebody from that movement is always going to do something stupid.
Yeah. And you know what? Next week
she'll be something else.
It'll be something else. Maybe they'll let it die down a little bit and give it 2 weeks.
I doubt it. All right. Well, let's get on to the news. And now the news.
Mark Twain was probably the strongest apologist against the Christian faith that America has ever seen. His book, Huckleberry Finn, probably the most popular book used in high school education, high school literature. And what I go at my book is the whole literature program in Christian schools and Christian colleges across America. We have been almost thoroughly infiltrated by humanist ideas in literature programs. Almost nobody has approached these things with as much critique as I have in my book. I take on Mark Twain. I take on Nathaniel.
What's in Huckleberry Finn that we should watch out for?
Well, Huckleberry Finn is a constant attack on the Christian church for its position on slavery in the southern states. And he mocks Christianity throughout. Huckleberry Finn himself is an atheist who is abandoning the faith and finding multiple reasons throughout his journey to oppose the Christian faith. He points out hypocrisy everywhere. Think of the Granger Fords, where they run into Granger Fords who have the Bible and Pilgrim's Progress and everything. They go to Sunday school in the morning, and then they go and murder the living daylights out of each other on Sunday afternoon. I mean, his book is extremely powerfully, cynically against the Christian faith. And Mark Twain himself, I believe, turned out to be demon-possessed at the end. At the end of his life, within 2 years of dying, he wrote a book penning letters from Satan to the archangels and instructed his daughter not to publish the book ever because it would get him into trouble. It was finally published in the 1960s. It's one of the most acidic, horrific, evil books I think ever written by any human being in the history of mankind.
Colorado pastor Kevin Swanson has declared that Mark Twain was, in fact, possessed by demons. In an article from Right Wing Watch, ultra-right-wing nutball Swanson explained on True News with host Rick Wiles that Mark Twain was the strongest apologist against the Christian faith that America's ever seen, adding that Huckleberry Finn was just a long attack on the Christian church by exposing Christian hypocrisy on issues like slavery. He went on to claim that Marx and Nietzsche were also demon-possessed, and Darwin was a sadist. This is what happens when you get religious crazies together. Seriously, guys!
You know what? I can't even comment on this. I mean, it's just so stupid. I don't even understand, how they come up with Twain being demon possessed. I mean, where does that come from?
They make it up.
They got some good drugs going around.
Yeah, the problem is that you have to remember who these people are talking to. They're talking to the choir. So they don't give a damn what they say. The choir's never going to call them on it. And they have no problem just lying through their teeth to come up with things that will appeal to their audience. They don't give a damn. It doesn't have to make sense because the only people who will call them on it are people they don't care about.
Yeah, it numbs my mind. I mean, it's knowing that there's people like this reproducing is so scary. Huckleberry Finn's been bashed by, I think all groups have bashed it. Now the Christians are bashing it. You know, it's like, get off of it. It's a story about life on the Mississippi in, you know, old times. I mean, it's not a metaphor for satanic rituals or supporting cannibalism and homosexuality and sodomy and whatever. I mean, these guys are like, maybe they need to get out in the sun. Maybe they need to talk to real people. So I'm just so lost at what this guy, what's going through his head. You know, did he just do too much drugs when he was a kid and now his brain's just Swiss cheese? You know, there's nothing up there. And it's sad that their followers will just say, oh yeah, he's right because he's the pastor and he's he's our conduit to God. You know, it's like, oh, come on, people, please have a brain. Please, show me you have a brain. Maybe, and maybe I might even be willing to rethink things. I mean, it won't change anything, but you know what? I mean, this is just so ignorant.
Yeah, well, I mean, his whole thing is it's just such a ludicrous rant. You know, I mean, first off, he claims that Twain was possessed by demons, that Twain was horribly anti-religious, which granted he was, but for good reason. But he says that Twain was the strongest apologist of all time. Not even close. I mean, people like, even modern authors like, Dawkins and Hitchens have had a much, much bigger impact than anything Twain ever said.
Yeah.
And then they bitch and whine about Huckleberry Finn, exposing Christian hypocrisy. Well, it doesn't say that it accused Christians of being hypocritical wrongly. It just said, hey, you showed people that we actually are hypocritical. So they're actually complaining about the truth. Well, fuck you.
Yeah.
If you look at just the Western world over the last 150 years, and you survey people, you're going to find Charles Darwin had the most influence on the most people over the last number of years. Now, as it turns out, he was a sadist. He was insane. He suffered from multiple forms of insanity, and he confessed himself to be a sadist who enjoyed torturing small animals to death and really dreamed of killing and murdering people. And also, I think the most horrific thing about Charles Darwin, people need to understand, is he wrote a book called The Descent of Man, in which he talked about the necessity of eliminating certain races. And when he said that there's a necessity of eliminating certain races, in the paragraph that I treat in my book, in fact, I list out that long paragraph, and I say this is probably the worst paragraph, the most dangerous paragraph, the most horrific paragraph, the most evil paragraph ever written in any book in the history of mankind. And people need to know that paragraph. They need to know it virtually by heart if they're ever going to stand up against the eugenics and the racism and the evolutionary racism that is predominant in the minds of men today. Charles Darwin was an extremely evil man, and I think he was ultimately the root of what happened with Adolf Hitler and the eugenics and the racist programs that developed out in the 1920s.
And the inspiration for Planned Parenthood.
Oh, yes. Yeah, throw that in, too.
He really, really hates Darwin. He's got a hard-on for Darwin, which, most evangelicals do. But he's like claiming that Darwin had multiple forms of insanity and that he was a sadist and that he wanted to go out and eat people and kill people and he taught people to go around and murder others. Where the fuck do you come up with this stuff?
I mean, there's no proof for that. I mean, that there's got to be enough to say, hey, wait a minute, this guy's is just going off the rocker here,
Yeah, he's off his meds.
Yeah. And because I can't think of anything that would even come close to anything that this guy's just described about Darwin. And people believe him?
Well, evangelicals aren't, let's face it, these people buy what's in the Bible. These people buy the crap that comes down from the pulpit every week. They're not critical thinkers. These are not people who think about what they believe. So, yeah, they'll buy into anything that fits into their worldview because somebody they respect said so.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but, I mean, they're taking all this stuff on faith. I mean, this is all faith. You know, the congregants have faith that the pastor's, you know, giving them the straight scoop, and, you know, the pastor is getting, you know, the straight scoop from God or whatever he's talking to. You know, it's like, and there's no way, you know, there's no other need to think beyond that. You know, you just have to have faith in what everyone's telling you. And we're in a thinking world. You know, you can't just take on faith anything that's told you. I mean, even as a skeptic, we're not here to take everything on faith. I like questioning. Even on occasion, I'll question stuff that we kind of believe that is true. And, I mean, eventually I fall back to, okay, yeah, we're still good. You know, I mean, like with government, you always got to be questioning your government. I mean, but not go to the point where you think that they're, you know, out to, you know, send you to FEMA camps and, you know, send you to gas chambers, you know. No, I mean, but you got to be involved, you know, and understand and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, but these are probably the same kind of people who think that Obama is actually a Satanist and he's sacrificing people and, you know, all this other nonsense. That's right. The kind of thing that these people pull constantly, is they just claim, oh, well, they're demons and they're evil and they're devil worshippers and they're all this other nonsense without evidence, because evidence doesn't matter to these people. Like I said, they believe the Bible. As long as they say something and they throw in the right theological words to make their believers buy it, it doesn't matter what they say. They just make all kinds of ridiculous crap up and say, see, it's true. Well, that's not how the world works. You know, you said we live in the real world. These people don't. These people don't live anywhere remotely close to the real world.
Right. And they don't want to.
No, I mean, they're happy living in a fantasy world.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, it's sad.
I mean, I really wish, I mean, I wish I could, cause I've never lived in that, you know, that deep into, you know, just total, maybe when I was a kid, maybe I believed in, certain things that turned out not to be true, but, it wasn't scary. I mean, scary when I started realizing it was a real world out there, that there were, well, you know, there were no ghosts and things like that. I mean, I imagine these people are scared to look out because cause they're between, you know, having to take all this stuff in on faith. You know, if you start losing that faith, then you're going to be tormented by demons and the devil and you go to hell. And I'm sure these people are scared of doing that, you know, so, I mean, these are, I don't know, slaves. I mean, well, even slaves have some kind of, sense of, you know, right and wrong and this isn't right type stuff, but,
yeah, these people don't.
they bought into it and, you know, and then they call us sheeple.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Okay. Yeah. Whatever turns you on, dudes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, this is just another example of just the utter stupidity and lunacy that goes on in the evangelical circles. I don't get these people. I just don't. The problem is I can't really differentiate between people who believe this nonsense and, you know, just the insane who would just wander the streets in straitjackets babbling to themselves. It's the same people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just that sad, you would love to just shake them out of it, you know, walk up and says, dude, get back into the world. There's no demons. There's no heaven, hell, anything, you know, I've said it, you know, we got this wonderful planet we live on, you know, learn to love it. Yeah, it's like a mental illness. They're trapped in their own, in their brains. They think this, you know, everything is, evil and terrible and there's demons and, you know, yeah, you just gotta keep, reading your Bible and doing that or you take the Kool-Aid and, join the space aliens, you know.
Oh yeah.
Nothing good can come from it.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, as soon as you start criticizing it, they start declaring it's religious discrimination.
Yes. Like what I'm going to talk about here in a little bit almost.
Well, we can just go ahead and get to that. I think we've milked this one as far as we can go.
Okay, from the Deseret News. Religious discrimination in the workplace increases with diversity. Research has found that as religious diversity increases in the workplace, so do the instances of religious discrimination. But there is always ways to combat discrimination and reap the benefits of diversity. When I saw this, the thing that really jumped out at me right away, right when I started reading this, was being discriminated in the workplace for religion. And there are definitely laws that your employer is supposed to accommodate you to an extent on your religious practices. And it's kind of limited. It's not as rigid as you might think it is, but it's more like, if you work in an office, yeah, it might be okay to get like a floating holiday that you can use for your religion, like a religious, they won't have like Easter as a holiday, but you could take it off as a holiday, whether it's paid or unpaid, whatever arrangements are made. But there's some reasonable accommodations are made for religion, but you're not going to get, you're not going to be able to take, 8 days for Hanukkah off, or you're not going to be able to take, I don't know how long Ramadan runs, but, you can't take that time off. And, if you're required to work on Saturdays and you're Jewish, you're going to work on Saturdays, there's no way around that. So I don't see where any kind of discrimination, I mean, if it does happen, then you have legal recourses to take. But as far as this is saying, okay, are they just complaining about Muslims coming into the workplace and Hindus and, things like that? And is it because now there's so much varying religions? Are people getting in trouble just talking religion? And it really shouldn't be in a workplace. I mean, but that's the big thing here is I don't think, if there's discrimination, you got routes to deal with it. But, it's not, I don't see this being, I don't see why this is even a big issue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as soon as I saw this, my first reaction was, duh. I mean, of course religious discrimination occurs more often in a place where there's more than one religion. That's fucking obvious. That's not news. Like, racial discrimination occurs more often in a place that has more than one race. Gender discrimination occurs more often in a place with more than one sex. Nobody discriminates against themselves. So the headline itself is not news. It's like obvious much. The other point is these people are claiming discrimination, but we've seen before that most of these claims that they're making are because they're not being allowed to discriminate against other people. The religious, and this is especially with the evangelicals and the fundamentalists, they want to be able to push their religion on other people. And if they're told they're not allowed to do that, they scream discrimination because they're not allowed to discriminate against other people.
Right.
Seriously, guys?
Yeah, and that's the rules. I mean, that is the workplace supposed to be neutral. I mean, I'm going to say neutral. I mean, it doesn't always happen, but it's supposed to be, and sometimes people break the rules, so you go through the channel. I mean, that's kind of like what's, like we're seeing with the, kind of going back to the Rebecca Watson shit that's going on. There are legal channels to deal with, these discriminations, the harassments, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah, but they're not legitimate discrimination or harassments. That's the point. And that's true for both of them. You're right. It's very similar. That's true for both of them. They're both claiming discrimination when they cannot demonstrate discrimination.
Right. You have to be able to do that. And there's channels to deal with it. So, it always seems to be the evangelicals seem to be the big ones that are saying, well, we want to be able to say, we want the God we trust on our money. We want all this, this stuff. We want the prayers in schools and like when you say, well, you can't because you're favoring one religion over, they say, oh, well, you're just discriminating against us. This is our beliefs.
Right. That's exactly it. They don't care about equality. They're not interested in equality. They want superiority for their side.
Right. Because they believe they're superior. All religions think they're superior to all the others. And these people, they pretend that this is a Christian nation and all that kind of stuff to say, hey, this is what's supposed to be here. We're supposed to be saying in God we trust and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, no, dude, that's not how it works. You're not supposed to endorse a religion. Now, if you want to go out in the parking lot or off the property and then hand out flyers to people walking by saying, hey, join our church, hey, more power to you. But when you're in the workplace, that can't happen. That's when it has to stop. It stops at the property line.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these people are also complaining. They're going, well, our religious needs are being discriminated against. No, I'm sorry, but religious needs and religious desires are not the same thing. Just because you want something doesn't mean that you need it. I don't care if you want to pray. Sometimes you just can't. Besides, nobody can stop you from sitting at your desk and praying privately to yourself any damn time you want. But that's not what they want. They want to make a show of it. They want to be able to talk to others, convince others, convert others. That's their whole purpose. Well, that's not the point of having a job. And then they sit around and bitch, well, maybe we don't want to work on the Sabbath. Well, if you don't want to work on the Sabbath, don't get a job that requires you to work on the Sabbath. Life's a bitch. If you don't like it, quit.
Yeah.
Nobody's holding a gun to your head and forcing you to work there. You're acting like people have to cater to your religion first and foremost. And that's not the way reality works. This is another case of these people don't live in the real world.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, I know that some of the labor rules, you're allowed to accommodate a little bit. You can make some adjustments, but if the job you're doing requires you to shave your beard, you can't wear rings, you have to work on Saturdays, or you have to work on Sundays, or whatever you're not allowed to do. If your job requires you to do those things, you have to do it. You have no recourse. You can't just say, well, it's against my religion. Well,
too bad.
Too bad. We won't go that far.
Hey, it's against my religion to work on any day that ends with a Y, okay?
Yeah.
How long am I going to stay employed doing that?
Not too long.
That's just stupid. And the fact is, I don't really give a crap about your religion. It's only religious discrimination if I'm only making the Muslims shave their beards and not anybody else. If I'm making everybody do it, especially the women, because they really need it, it's not discrimination. It's equality. Everybody has to go by the same rules. Your religion doesn't get to rule the workplace. Sorry, just doesn't.
Yeah. So, I know with refineries, they usually require you to, you have to be clean shave. You can have mustache, sideburns, but basically any place where, because in case you're gassed and, the paramedics are going to want to get oxygen on you. So, they need to have that firm fit. And honestly, about every, refinery I've been in, you are clean shaved or you don't work. And, it's one of those, these are just things you have to do to stay employed. And if you're that strongly, your religious convictions are saying, no, I have to have my beard, I have to do this, you're either going to have to find another job somewhere else, or starve. That's what it's coming down to. And you're going to have to, bend a little bit. And when you keep hearing about these evangelicals, like our last article, it's like these people can't bend. They can't think. They think it's all an attack on them. It's an attack on their religion because they can't do their thing, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's because these people think that the religion is the end-all be-all of entire existence. They don't care about anything else. Everything depends on their religion. They can't think outside of their religion. Therefore, anything that gets in the way of their religion is automatically evil. It's like there's lots of workplaces out there that say you cannot have any visible tattoos. That's life. Some guy who goes in and has a cross tattooed on his forehead isn't going to get a job. And you can't scream religious discrimination because you were an idiot and just, decided to put a tattoo of a cross on your forehead. Right. Actions have consequences. These people do not want their religious actions to have any negative consequences, but they do. That's life. That's reality. That's the way it goes. There's not much you can really do about that.
Right. Exactly. And it would be nice if these people got it, got a clue, and especially like with this article, when I read it, it's like, come on, get with it.
Yeah, the problem is the evangelicals think that their religion is the end-all be-all of everything, like I said, and they just can't imagine that them not getting their way is even remotely acceptable. They think they can discriminate against everybody else, and nobody can discriminate against them, quote-unquote discriminate against them, and it just doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or wants. They get their way, and they got God on their side, and screw everybody else. And these people just don't live on the same rational planet that the rest of us do, and I think they really just need to grow up.
Definitely.
All right, well, why don't we go ahead and get to our last story here? According to a new survey conducted by the Barna Group, a majority of Americans, just over 66%, think that the Bible should be taught in American public schools, and that if we did so, it would reinforce proper Christian morals in society. Mark Burnett, who produced the Bible miniseries, says it's time to encourage, perhaps even mandate, the teaching of the Bible in public schools as a primary document of Western civilization. Yeah, I don't really think the Supreme Court would approve. What do you think?
Definitely not. That would be totally off limits. I mean, I'm trying to remember where I heard it though. As far as literature goes, I think the Bible could be thrown in there because so much early literature, and a lot of literature is. Well, it was Dawkins. Dawkins talked about that. I mean, he's not out to burn the Bible and get rid of it. He's saying that a lot of terminology we use, a lot of the sayings we use has come from the Bible. But as far as teaching it as a religion, as a religious class in public schools, no way, no effing way.
Well, yeah, I mean, the problem is a lot of schools do teach the Bible. They do teach it as a document, as a book, as something that has influenced Western society. These people don't want that. They want the Bible taught as fact. They want it taught as this is a science, or, quote unquote science.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean that this is a factual book, and it should be, as valid as any other scientific theory. And no, it isn't. It's most Christian religions are based off of, if not all. And no, you can't teach it as as a religion. You teach it as literature. I'm cool with that. But beyond that, you can't do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to remember first that the survey was specifically conducted for the American Bible Society. Any bias there, and Barna, as a research group, they work specifically for churches and religions and that kind of stuff. So you got to take their results with a grain of salt anyway.
Right.
But their goals are more than a little discriminatory. If you look at the president of the American Bible Society, Doug Berdahl, he says, while our intention may be to protect students from the influence of, quote unquote, other people's religion, the effect has been that we are raising a generation ignorant about the most influential book of all time. So their whole purpose in this study is to push the Bible. So they ended up coming up with a study that says, we're going to push the Bible. It's ridiculously biased.
Yeah, it's terrible. I was trying to find any type of information on it, and I haven't really seen anything about, sample size, all that kind of stuff, and margins of errors and anything like that. So,
well, they said it was about 1,000 people in person and about another 1,000 people online. Now, we don't know who these people were. They probably just got a mega church and interviewed people walking out the door,
Exactly.
They did not take a cross-section of Americans. They probably took a bunch of evangelicals and said, right. Well, what do you think about the Bible? Well, that's not a good survey. I'm sorry.
Right. That in online, I mean, who knows what you were getting on that one, that side of it. So,
well, I'm sure they just handed out the URL to people. They probably printed it in a church bulletin or something.
Right. Exactly. So I don't put a whole lot of credence into this study. Definitely got to question that part. And of course, they're pushing an agenda to get religion taught in public schools. Again, that's basically a no-no. I think this is just another tactic to try to insert religion into public schools, sort of along the lines of teaching creationism alongside of evolution. That wedge strategy of trying to find a little crack in there and shove religion in it, and hopefully the crack gets bigger and you get more religion in it until now they're teaching a religion. And, that is so wrong on so many levels.
Yeah, I mean, this is the same thing we've talked about over and over and over today, is that these people as far as they're concerned, their religion comes first before absolutely anything else, and anything that gets in the way of their religion is evil, demonic, discriminatory, whatever.
Right. Like they're oppressed, this, of course, I think the Bible's been pretty, popular for oppressing, people around the world, so, but apparently they can't see that.
Well, they don't care about that. They think that's great.
Well, that's the idea, Again, they're trying to fill pews, I guess, and you got to steal them when they're young, I guess. Get them while they're young, and get them hooked, get them into church. So let's go to the public schools and force them to learn creationism. That's just so wrong on so many levels. I mean, you can't be teaching a Christian religion in a public school. I mean, the basic facts is that there's nothing accurate about creation. There's nothing accurate about the Bible being historical. It's really, it's only been used pretty much to oppress brown people. I mean, I hate to put it like that, but it's what I think the Bible is probably meant for, is to oppress everyone else but those who believe in it.
Oh, of course, but that's what all religions are there for. All religions exist to oppress everybody else. That's what every religion is for.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, the more that we talk about the same kind of stuff over and over, just the more ridiculous it becomes. I don't understand how people, and especially talking about evangelicals and fundamentalist Christians and all that, and we can even look at the Muslims. They have the same damn problem. How these people don't understand that they're just complete hypocrites. How do these people not have the ability to look at their own religion critically? I don't get it.
Again, with faith, they're taking all this on faith, that the book that they're following, whether the Quran, the Bible, the King James, the Torah, all that kind of stuff, that they're taking on faith, that these books are telling them the truth. And by taking it on faith, you don't question anything outside of that. This is the word. And again, I guess it gets scary when you step out of that world you built up around your religion. It's like an addiction. You've trapped yourself into this very narrow world. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's funny that the same kind of story just keeps coming up over and over and over again. And we just do this week after week after week. And it's not just this kind of story, but there's all kinds of stories that we just keep doing again and again and again. People killing their kids with faith healing, people doing all this stuff. And these people never learn their lesson. No matter how many times the same kind of story comes up, they keep doing the things wrong that caused them problems in the first place. How do we fix these people other than a bullet in the head?
I mean, you can't put them in jail. You can't, you could if people are going to die at their hands, I don't know. I mean, I wish I knew. I wish I knew that there was one magic answer, but I don't think there is. I think we're dealing with psychosis. We're dealing with people who are, they're just so ingrained with the religion. And you're not really dealing with if you're looking at religion all together, between the mainstream ones and the sort of mainstream ones and then the fringe ones. You got people who are in different states of belief. Some are just so hardcore that we should be following Leviticus. This is the law. We should be following it. We should be stoning, impure women and stuff like that. And then there's those who are like, well, I know a lot of it's bullshit, but I still have to have faith in something. You got that range, and you almost have to say, I think we're doing it the right way. We're pointing out that there are these stupid, screwed up fundamentals who are sitting there, they're the ones, praying their kid is dying from pneumonia, and they're praying the pneumonia away. You've got, all this, and we're pointing out, we'll never get to those people because they've drank the Kool-Aid and they're in, they're not leaving that. But if we keep pointing these people out, if we get enough people to say, hey, what these people are doing are wrong, and maybe getting enough people to start saying, hey, this is ridiculous. Religion is killing people. we need to find a better belief system, or something like that. And, if we keep pointing that out, maybe those that are on the fringe are saying, yeah, I kind of believe in God, to say, hey, this is cool. I mean, I'm done with this. I mean, if I'm believing in something that's killing people, I need to get out of it. Maybe that's what has to happen,
And a lot of it may be actually happening right now. I mean, we are seeing the crazies losing members and all that, so you never know. I mean, maybe it's just the beginning of the end, and we just have to be patient to let these people dig their own graves.
Yeah, let them try to hit the top spot on the Darwin Awards.
I wish. I'd like to see the religious crazies all end up ending themselves, but that's probably something that isn't going to happen, unfortunately.
Or maybe. I mean, they seem to get crazier and crazier every year. I mean, I think the stories have been getting crazy. Or either that, or the stories are just finally getting out of the the local news and getting into the public. I mean, if we can get more of those stories into the national news or even world news type thing, maybe that might be the trick.
I don't know. I mean, the only thing I kind of worry about there is you get a lot of people who maybe on the local scene feel that they're kind of alone, that, they don't have a lot of people to pretend are with them in their local scene, but now that these stories are on the international news, that they can say, hey, I'm not alone. It's okay for me to practice these bizarre, ridiculous religious rituals that kill people.
Yeah.
There's kind of a problem there too.
Yeah, but I think if rational people, I mean, people who haven't bought in, maybe start realizing, hey, what my neighbor is doing is wrong. Or, I mean, there was a Family Guy where it was a new family moved in. There was a kid whose parents were faith healers, and Lois trying to do something about it. And I thought it was a pretty neat way of showing the problem that there are people who want, I guess the kid's dying of cancer and he needs cancer treatment. And I believe it ended up that the kid eventually started or Lois made the point, but they created hospitals. God created hospitals to, so the kid can get medicine so he can heal. You're not violating any rules by, just praying over the kid isn't going to save his life, but, using it like, hey, God created hospitals, God created, all this stuff. So you're not violating your rules. And, so the kid ended up getting his chemotherapy, and, maybe not the perfect story, but you know what? It's, if something like that could save a life, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I am too. I'm really out there for the quality of life of people rather than, their emotional needs for their magical, happy stories.
Right.
All right, well, why don't we go ahead and jump over and do a segment of Conservatism 101.
All right.
Class, be quiet and pay attention. If I have to tell you one more time.
Now then, boy, we'll see how much you learn.
I've been working in Detroit, Michigan, and I saw this book, Detroit, An American Autopsy by Charlie LaDuff. This is actually a really good book. Before I really get into the book, though, it's kind of like it's a book that I think people should read. Our listeners should look at. It's on Audible. You can get it on Amazon. I think the only detractor from the book was that there's about a third of the book is about Charlie himself, his life. He talks a lot about his family, but it's intermixed in the meltdown of Detroit, Michigan, and the corruption that pretty much runs rampant in this town. What struck me the most about this book was that, when I hear about big cities, I kind of have an interest in machine politics. You have the New York machine, the Tammany Hall, you had the Daily machine, you had the Pendergrass machine in Missouri, you had all these political machines that worked the corruption really, and when it does come out, it's usually maybe a department or two, and it's like a building department and a builder overbills for a project and things like that. But when you read this book, and that's why I'm recommending it, is that everything in this town was for sale. Politicians, the fire department, the police department, the city works, any money that came into this town got skimmed. And then on top of it, then you got the big three automakers who are kind of based here somewhat. Even them too were like skimming money. They use, this is like the black hole of corruption. Anything that's corrupt, you name it. Think about, your little towns, your places you live, and, there might have been that one, a tax collector skimming money from a tax, a builder overcharging or just charging for work that was never done. Any of these stories you've heard in your own towns, it has probably happened at least 1 million times in Detroit, Michigan. And this guy kind of lays everything out. Apparently he was working for a Detroit newspaper. He came on the scene about the time the mayor he had done 30 days in the jail for perjury, I believe, in a case where a stripper was killed. A lot of rumors were going around about that. Apparently the stripper was at a party where Kwame Kirkpatrick, the mayor, plus a lot of the big councilmen, all the big names in Detroit politics was there. And the rumor was that this stripper was killed because she was going to spill the beans on their little party, which was all on taxpayer money. And that's how the story starts, and it just gets worse and worse. I mean, the fire department they were skimming money from the fire departments, the police departments, even federal money that was coming in. There was $150 million was granted to Detroit to tear down vacant buildings. Roughly about a third of that ended up in the various ministers within the city of Detroit. And a third of that disappeared into the construction companies, and the other third is sitting there waiting to be spent. They haven't even started tearing buildings down and this has been over 3 years. You drive through some of the nastier parts of this town, and you see this buildings all boarded up, vacant lots everywhere. Apparently it's a hobby here to at night for entertainment is to go into one of these vacant buildings, set a fire, and then watch the firemen come over and put the fire out. That's how they entertain themselves. It's like everything about this town, and he has a story in here about, they found a body in one of these vacant buildings. It was one of the larger old factories, and it turned out to be a Gulf War vet who had mental problems. It was one of those kind of in and out type problems. He was kind of mixed into some drugs. So he would get high, realize he was messed up, he'd go dry out, find a family member to dry out for a little while, then back out on the street. He was kind of semi-homeless. And apparently he died of a heart attack while he was in one of these buildings. So somebody thought the best thing to do with the body was to they found an elevator shaft and threw him down in there.
Oh, that's bright.
Yeah. And someone eventually found the body. He was actually floating upside down. His feet was sticking up out of the ice. It took hours to chip the ice away to find this guy. And, and that's bad enough. Charlie, he's talking about afterwards, he got so much hate mail for finding that body. And one guy, it was anonymous, hate, where, he apparently, I don't know, I don't get Showtime, but there's supposed to be like these underground sports. I don't know if they do if they're doing an underground sports. I mean, it's these guys that go into vacant buildings. They break into vacant buildings. And actually this one they were going to play hockey in. Well, when they showed up, a film crew from Showtime, and these guys show up and see all the police. They couldn't go in, and they lost their time on Showtime, and that's why he was ticked off at this guy for reporting the finding this body. It's like, even the dead doesn't get respect in this town.
Yeah.
And this guy, and Charlie goes through, all these really, everything about this town. Not just government, but the corruption in the automakers, and the people have given up here. This is, and maybe the kind of a downside of this book. It all seems to, he has nothing really good to say about this town, but looking around, there's really not a lot to this town. They've got they've got the Ford Museum. I think it's at Bell Island. I think that's kind of a hangout place. A few nicer places, but that's kind of outside on the outskirts of the downtown. In its heyday, the city of Detroit, and he talks about it in the book. What killed this town, or at least where the demographics changed, was the 1967 riots, where basically it was like a week worth of violence, where it started off with a police raid on a illegal drinking, a blind pig is what they called it. It's the idea was that you paid so much to see a blind pig, a blind cow. I think that but what you do is you pay that money to see this blind pig, but they hand you a glass of gin. That was the idea. So you weren't paying for the drink, you were paying to see something else, and while you were there, you were handed a drink, it's to skirt the dram laws.
Right.
So the police raided one of these. There was I think there was 80 some people involved with this, but a crowd had built up around this arrest, and next thing you know, people were throwing rocks, setting fires, breaking into buildings. Then she started escalating. Then the state sent in the National Guard, and then even the National Guard couldn't contain it. I think at the height, there was almost 400 fires lit in the city, and they were trying to get President Johnson at the time to send the army in to help the police, and they had already moved the 82nd Airborne. They needed Michigan to say that a insurrection was in full swing. Until that, they couldn't send troops in. And once Michigan says, yeah, we got an insurrection, then they sent in the 82nd Airborne. They weren't doing arrests, but they were detaining people and then letting police arrest them. But they even had to go to Canada to get extra policemen just to book all these people in. It was just a total disaster. But what that did was, now at this time, Detroit was kind of a mixed demographic. It was about a 50-50 white-black composition. Well, that was the time when whites started moving out to the suburbs. And I think right now it went from 1.9 million people. It's now down to 700,000, and 89% black. By the time the 80s came around, and that was about, and again about the time when the automakers really did a nosedive. A lot of jobs started disappearing, people out of work. Apparently the town can't even collect taxes anymore. There's so much delinquent taxes on all this property. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't get the money that they need. It's just total meltdown. And you had and basically a government that was skimming. If some of these numbers I'm looking at, billions have disappeared into this town, all into the pockets of somebody. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. And unfortunately, the other problem that they have is, and it's a problem that a lot of towns have, is, they've signed just ridiculous union benefit contracts. Right now, for every dollar that goes into the government, I think they said 79% of that dollar goes towards paying union benefit contracts. So it's no wonder this town is dead in the water and going under for the third time, because they did some really stupid crap.
Yeah, not that I'm saying anything that any type of corruption is good. But you know what? You know, the stuff I've seen in Illinois, I mean, our governor's going to prison. You know, it's not that widespread. It's like this entire town. Everybody. I mean, billions have disappeared for just upkeep on fire departments. You know, billions have disappeared for maintaining the police department. I mean, Kilpatrick made the comment that all these firemen do are they sit in the stations, they eat steak, and every once in a while put out a fire. These guys are putting out fires every night, 2 or 3 of them, and most of these fires are set by the people next door. Either they're, again, for entertainment, just to watch the firemen put out a fire, or they're doing it to get the fire department, you know, get the building to burn down enough so they can go in there and they can steal all the copper and metal out of the building. You know, it's one of those two, and firemen have died dealing with these fires. There was again a story about a fireman who, there was a house, again, it was actually an arson. I mean, pretty much any fire in Detroit is an arson. He goes in, he gets killed. They caught the one guy, and this guy ratted out the property owner. It was all part of a insurance scam to burn down. You know, they paid the one guy to go in with gasoline, and the guy went to the corner gas station right there where this house was, filled up a gallon of gas, walked down the street with the gallon of gas, poured it in there, and then walked back with the can to give it back to the guy who owned the house. You know, and people watched him do it. And it's like, oh my, I mean, that's how crazy it is, you know, and that's what's in this book. I mean, I'm hoping this guy, you know, again, maybe being a little critical of the book. I mean, it's a one-sided story, you know, and everything seems to be all this. I mean, the writing style is kind of like a 30s noir type writing. So a lot of it's pretty grim anyhow when you read the book. But, you know, the fire departments had, for their alarms, they had there's supposed to be an audible alarm that goes off first, and then a fax comes in to tell them where to go to put out the fire. Well, the audible alarm hadn't worked, so they rigged up a switch to, when the fax came in, it pushed over a door hinge to close a electrical contact to make the alarm ring, just so they know that, hey, they got a fire to go to. It was all budgeted to repair this, and apparently somebody, you know, again, the skim at the fire department, someone high up had, you know, they gave the money to a contractor who came in with an invoice. They didn't bother to check if the work was done and just signed off. Okay, that's cool. You get paid. The work never got done. The contractor got paid. No one questioned it until this guy did, you know, who wrote the book. You know, it's like, you know, it's not even covert. It's overt. You know,
yeah.
I mean, you know, it's just, I mean, it's really sad, and Detroit's been branded has been brought forth as the most liberal, or the liberal town in, you know, the great liberal experiment. If this is what if liberalism is supposed to do, I'm glad I'm conservative. I mean, I'd love to see the religious part get kicked out of the Republican Party, but, you know, this town is being run by criminals, and literally we've gone through a couple mayors in the past 2 years. I think the police chief, he was involved with a sex scandal. I don't know what happened with the fire. I think that guy was replaced. There's no government here. I mean, I think the town kind of runs because those who do want it to work, you know, I work in a refinery it's right next to one of the Ford factories. So I think they look out for themselves, you know, they know they can't rely on the police, or pretty much every refinery I've been in, they have their own fire department. So, I mean, apparently the fire department is a lot better than the police. Police, it takes like 45 minutes to an hour if you call them to show up. I don't know if that's improved over the year, because this book kind of covers 2010 to 2012, and it came out in 2013. You know, I don't know if that's changed any, but probably not.
Seriously, this makes me think of RoboCop. All I can think of is, holy shit, where's the OCP?
Yeah. I never really, when I first got here and was working here, it seemed okay. I mean, I hadn't really gotten into the downtown area, but when I started going through some of these neighborhoods near the refinery, I'm like, I mean, these houses look much like what's back in Chicago where I live, or I live southwest of Chicago. And a lot of these houses look very much like my hometown, except the only difference is my hometown, people live in them. Here, they're just shells. They're empty shells, or the ones that people are living in. They have these huge fences. I mean, barbed wire and the whole works, to keep the criminals out. And, it's a really sad, it's a very sad, depressing place.
Yeah, certainly not someplace I'd want to be.
I mean, the suburbs are great. I mean, my hotel's in, one of the suburbs, southwest of Detroit. You definitely want to stay in the suburbs, maybe the far west side, but you don't want to be like in the north side, I guess. I guess that's supposed to be the worst part of the town. I mean, I'm in the southwest of Detroit, and it's pretty sad seeing these buildings. I mean, some of them, there was a fire in it. There was even, looks like an old school. I mean, that's even the sadder part. Kids used to, they used to go there to learn, and these buildings look like they were built in the 30s, the old, the nice brick, red brick houses, but they're all just hulks, they're empty. It's just really sad.
Yeah. And the problem is that Detroit, for all the problems Detroit has had, and I agree that there's a lot of problems going on in Detroit that a lot of other cities don't have, but Detroit is a good cautionary tale for what happens when you get rampant liberalism running in the politics. There are lots of other towns that are right behind Detroit heading into bankruptcy, and those tend to be the big liberal bastions. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Fresno. I mean, these are all towns that are classically liberal run, and they're all falling apart.
Yep.
We're seeing where liberal politics just isn't making this crap work. It's killing these communities.
Yeah, I would like to think it's corruption and liberalism coming together. I mean, if it's liberalism, it shouldn't be, but but it doesn't help. And I think even on top of it, Detroit, I think the people just gave up at one point. That's kind of like why I always like to think that, and maybe naively believing that, if people got mad and said, hey, we can't have this anymore, and they going into the voting booths and voting for the best candidates that they can, or say, hey, you would run, go to people and say, find people that would do a good job, and getting them to run to go into these, that's kind of like, because here I don't think anyone does that. They just say, oh, we're stuck. They've given up and saying, okay, they can't vote for a white person because, he's conservative, that type of thing. And, there's got to be a point where you say, well, we have to spend money. We got to keep our streets working. We need our fire departments. We need our police departments. So you're going to have to live without, the Renaissance Fair or the county fair this year, or the schools are going to have to cut out sports for a year or two, or whatever it takes, as long as the basics are taken care of. Once everything gets back to, gets fixed a little bit, get better, then you can bring back the nicer things, or get independent, get hey GM, we've given you billions of dollars to keep running. Give us $1 billion to spread across the country to do the extras, run the county fairs or whatever it is.
Yeah, but the problem is, and this is where Detroit specifically fell apart, but this is why I think liberalism is so insidious, is the people who were in Detroit, who were employed, who were conservative, when the jobs dried up, they left. And the people that they left behind are the people who have their hands out. The liberals, the poor, the people who are living in ghettos and lighting fires and all the rest of this stuff. And
Actually,
they keep voting to put the liberals in office, so they keep getting their handouts.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's a little different. I mean, here it was, there were still jobs in the 60s. I mean, when the mass exodus happened was in 67, and there were still jobs. I mean, actually until probably until the mid 70s, late 70s is when those jobs started drying up and the jobs started being shipped to Mexico. But in 67 was the mass exodus. I mean, the people kept their jobs. You just had to drive a little further from the suburbs. But the ones that stayed behind were that, or they were the poor. They wanted their handout. And actually, it was almost like they were, in a way, disenfranchised on top of it. They never were allowed it, because a lot of them that didn't, the blacks that had moved up, they came up from, the South, who were ex sharecroppers. They never had a stake in the system down there, and they probably came, and it sounds like they came up here and were never given a stake up here, because in the 60s, was, Michigan in general, but Detroit in particular was a very racist. I mean, there was an active Klan operating in the 60s. So many of these, who came up there for the cheap labor jobs, they were never allowed to be enfranchised, and they were forced into neighborhoods that, with the covenants, were white neighborhoods were excluding black, that type of thing. And it really was kind of, in the late 60s when that all came apart. But,
yeah.
But the work was still there, but they were moving out to the suburbs because of the riots. The riots really caused the problem. I mean, it wasn't in that police department that caused it. But then again, what was left as the whites were moving out because they could afford it, they had, even at the time they could afford, even on the, working the line jobs, they could, and they did move to the suburbs. One, because, they could do it, and they were allowed to. The suburbs actually wouldn't allow the blacks to move in. So it was kind of there's a whole race ugliness there. But, so the town was left with people who they kind of had money, but they were never enfranchised. And many of those that did rise up, who would, they just picked up where the whites that left off, and maintained that level of corruption that ran, which would, to what we see today.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, all that stuff happened in the 60s and 70s. Okay, that was 40 to 50 years ago. What's happened since then? Because the things that may have created the situation in the 60s and 70s haven't been around for a very, very long time. And you've got a lot of people, not only just in Detroit, but all over, who are still living as though it is the 60s and the 70s, who are pretending that the same kind of racism, the same kind of hatred, the same kind of everything is still out there.
Yeah.
They have never moved on, and I think that's a huge, huge problem. And as much as I hate to keep railing on the liberals, the Democratic Party has pushed that kind of a position for decades. They pretend that it's still going on so that they can still get the blacks and the Hispanics to vote for them, because they're supposed to be the party of the minority. So they have to guarantee themselves a voter base.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And, I don't disagree with that. And I think that's really what ended up happening, is that when those that probably did care left, you got the ones that didn't care and was expecting their handouts. And, the only people that were giving handouts were the Democrats. So they're going to be the party of choice. And, Chicago has always been a Democratic town. I mean, it's rare to ever see a Republican get any kind of traction. But you actually didn't see that migration like Detroit saw, where the inner city, it kept its diversity, I guess, if any, for lack of a better term. Detroit, it was just the whites, they could and they did get out of that town. That's what killed Detroit. And I think the same attitudes have perpetuated because no one cared. Those that were left behind didn't care about, they believed in this, a kind of a utopia. I think there's that liberal utopia thing where we're all happy people, but but even then, Detroit, if you weren't, actually a militant blacks had, kind of took over the town in a way. So there was whites had no purpose in, dealing with Detroit anymore. So it was really, everything was bad in that town.
Yeah, it's just a mess, but it's something that we should all learn a lesson from. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who just don't want to learn that lesson. They want to continue doing the same things that led to the downfall of Detroit because it's the liberal way. And we can see it over and over and over that it fails.
I wish I could remember the exact, this was the Roman Republic and was it the Greeks, the writers, and see, it had to do with once the people learned that they could vote themselves benefits, that's the end of government in its, some of that lines, was, once the people, and I think it even came out in the Federalist Papers, that, in a republic, once the people and the representatives realized they could vote themselves whatever they want, and they can vote themselves, more money to certain groups or whatever, that kills the republic.
Yeah.
And, we want people enfranchised. That's not, I'm not trying to sound racist here, but when you start making it easier for minorities to get loans, make money available for educations, stuff like that, and this is above and beyond any normal type of student, you got the student loans, but if you start creating special government, benefits, like we were, like the anchor babies we were talking about, we've created these special, extras for minorities, someone thinking this is the right thing to do. We're supposed to do good things for people, but really all you're doing is, creating a basic, some of the, the stuff with the Mexicans, it's a financial drain. Money's heading back to Mexico, nothing coming back to the United States. No taxes are being collected, from these people, or very little. When you give these special, privileges, giving, extra money for whatever, I'm not opposed to if someone says, hey, we want the best and brightest from the worst cities to get education. We've got a scholarship set up, and you can get $10,000 to go to the college of your choice. I'm talking about automatically, if you're a black kid, you're going to get $5,000 a year to go to college. That's not fair at all.
Yeah, well, they don't really want equality, or they want equality of outcome, not equality of opportunity. And that's another big liberal bugaboo that I think we've talked about before.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, this is just a mess, and it's something that should teach us a lesson, but it's not a lesson that most people want to learn because it gets in the way of their liberal ideology. It doesn't make them go, holy crap, this is where our practices lead. They don't care.
Right.
They just want to feel good, and I'm tired of people who just want to feel good.
Right.
So anyway, you want to finish up with the main event?
Let's finish up with the main event.
This is the main event.
Mike came across this article titled, How to Debate an Atheist and Win. The author, Peter Allibone, who is an atheist, gives 10 suggestions that supposedly might give theists an edge in debates over atheists. Now, we thought this was an interesting concept, especially given the miserable failure of theists in virtually all debates they engage in, so we thought we'd take a look at these 10 suggestions and see if we should be nervous. Alright, so I basically just made a list of the 10 suggestions that he came up with, so let's go through them pretty quickly and just kind of respond to them. Remember, these are made from an atheist perspective. These are just suggestions that might help theists. So number 1. Faith. Never bring this into your argument. No argument has ever been won on this. I agree entirely.
Right.
Claiming faith is not going to get you any traction at all with an atheist. It's like claiming magic, You can't go out and debate a scientist and have magic be your argument. It just doesn't work. because faith is not proven. It might be a personal thing, but it's just not something that somebody who doesn't have faith is going to pay any attention to.
Right. Actually, I found this cartoon I really like. I actually have it on my Google Plus page. You know, it's the scientist. He's got, you know, this long-winded formula on one side, the long-winded formula on the other side. Right in the middle it says, then a miracle happens. And the scientist is looking at it and saying, I think you need to clarify this middle piece a little better. You know, that's it. You know, religion is faith. I mean, you have to have faith that you're believing, and there's nothing really backing up this whole thing. So, you know, using that as a theist, you use faith, and kind of, you know, it just doesn't, it'll never work.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you can't use this kind of namby-pamby, mystical, happy-feeling nonsense when you're trying to have an actual debate. Debates have rules. You know, debates are there to reach a conclusion, and, you know, you can't just, like, start inserting miracles into the middle of your claims and saying, hey, therefore I'm right. It doesn't work that way. So, yes, I agree with number one. Really bad way to win a debate with an atheist. Number two, atheists are good at defining who has the burden of proof. That's true. Unfortunately, theists are really, really bad at recognizing that.
Yeah.
You know, they think that people have to prove their God doesn't exist, otherwise they do. Sorry, doesn't happen. And this, I think, goes back to faith, where a lot of these arguments are based entirely on faith, entirely on emotional, feel-good arguments. They want these things to be true, therefore they're going to believe these things are true without ever being able to prove it. And yeah, the atheist has to be able to sit down and say, sorry guy, you know, put up or shut up. You can't really get away without doing that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, there's the fallacies. I'm trying to think of some of the fallacies. Shoot. It's not the God of the gap fallacy, but, it's like, like an argument from lack of authority.
No, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly, but it's, you know, it's...
Well, it's shifting the burden of proof. That's what it is, but...
Right. Moving the goalpost.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, because, you know, to get a proper argument, I mean, watching these guys, you know, like the Ray Comforts and, they're really good at manipulating people. But you know what? I mean, it comes down to, there's gotta be a way to prove that God exists or he doesn't exist. I mean, and those that, you know, the proper arguments, you can't rely on faith, you can't rely on a book, you know, the Bible. I mean, using the Bible, because, you know, that could be doctored, but, that skeptical side to everything. Yeah, because it's like, you need to, you know, it's that trying to present things to, that can be testable. You gotta be able, you know, all that kind of stuff. I mean, trying to test for God. I mean, you can't, I mean, there's no way to do it. And,
well, alright. First off, what you're talking about brings us to numbers 3 and 4, so we'll just throw those out there.
Okay.
You know, 3 was never argue that you can prove a God. And 4, the Bible is not evidence. You know, it's like claiming that a book on UFOs is evidence of UFOs. This kind of stuff just doesn't happen. And you can't, unless you can actually objectively demonstrate that UFOs exist, then you've got no case. And I've been having this stupid argument with a UFO freak. You'd like him. He's a good conspiracy guy. Who basically runs around and he's doing the exact same thing they do for God. Well, the government is hiding all the evidence of UFOs. The aliens are super advanced, so they never make any mistakes. They never crash, except that when they crash, the government comes and scoops up the crashes with their black helicopters and all that stuff. And so there is no evidence of aliens or UFOs because A, the aliens are too smart for it, and B, the government is keeping us from finding the truth. And that's their argument. That's all they got. And then they sit around and go, but I can prove that aliens exist because aliens exist. And these arguments are no different than the theists going, I can prove God exists because I believe God exists.
Right, right. Well, just talking about UFOs, the formula that it's kind of a guess of how many possible, civil or, planets that may have life on them. To deny that life lives in the universe, that's kind of, you can't deny that other life has sprung up on other planets. But are they visiting this planet, and are they going in, like the Larry the Cable Guy, that these aliens are coming to Earth to butt diddle some guy in Alabama? No. I mean, we need more proof than just saying, well, it's possible that life can be out there, so that means they're visiting us. That's not a valid argument. I want to see a spaceship. I want to see an alien. I want to shake the alien's hand. Then I'll change my mind. But until that happens, arguing that the government's hiding stuff or our consciousness is not capable of resonating at their frequency, so we can't, all that kind of stuff. No, I want tangible proof. I want a spaceship. I want a space alien. I want anything to say they're real.
Absolutely.
I want the Vulcans to land and make first contact. I mean, it's going to happen. It should I imagine it will happen at some time, but I don't think it's happening now because you're presenting things like fuzzy pictures and these cryptic letters supposedly from a government program, Majestic 12, which turns out to be a fake. But I mean, I want to shake God's hand. I mean, that's what it's going to take for me to believe that there's God. I mean, I want him to stand here and say, hey Mike, yeah, I am real. And on top of it, I want to say, well, then can I go have you meet my friend Cephas and all my other friends, I mean, that's what we're going to need. We're going to need, that kind of proof until you can produce this God. You can't just say, hey, there's a book written about him. It's called the Bible or the Quran or whatever your argument support of God. It has to be physical. It has to be, here's God, here's his phone number, here's his address. He lives over on this street. That's what I want to see. I don't want this, but you gotta have faith and then again, that whole thing. So.
Yeah, but these people have all defined their gods or their aliens to be beyond any possible standard of proof.
Right.
And that's the funny thing, if you actually look at religion over time, is that as science learns more, theists stuff their God into a smaller and smaller and smaller box to make it harder and harder for science to fill those gaps. There was a time when they thought gods were on top of a mountain until people went up to the top of that mountain. And then they were on, well, okay, now the gods are invisible. Right. Or, gods throw lightning bolts. Well, till we figured out what actually causes lightning bolts. Then it's something else. They just keep moving the goalposts around. And now they're at the point where they've just defined God completely out of any possible way of discovery. And then they go, see, haha, you can't find God. Well, that's just stupid. Come on.
Right. Oh yeah.
All right. Well, let's go. Numbers 5 and 6 are pretty much the same, or they're very similar, so we'll do both of those at the same time. Number 5, be ready to answer criticism of the Bible, especially those dealing with slavery, genocide, rape, etc. And number 6, know your source material. The atheist probably knows more about the Bible than you do. And that's unfortunately true.
Yeah.
We know their source material a hell of a lot better than they do. Just had a debate where the guy didn't have a clue about any of the places in the Bible that talked about slavery. He was saying that the Bible was absolutely anti-slavery, and nowhere in the Bible, New Testament or Old Testament, did it ever say that slavery was a good thing. And I proved it to him, and he said, nope, that's not proof, because I can't believe that. These people are idiots.
Yeah. Oh, that's even worse. I mean, denying their own book. I mean, that's even worse, I think. I mean, there's those that they love Leviticus, and the gay parts and is it still Leviticus with the slave? You take your slaves from outside your nation or whatever. And this guy's just denying that those things exist. I mean, I think that's even worse than believing those passages.
Well, he didn't necessarily say that they didn't exist. He said that our understanding of them is wrong if that's the way that they're translated. The original books must not have said that, because the Bible could never say that. God could never say that. So he's basically creating his own God and then insisting that the Bible conform to what he believes about God, not basing what he believes on God on what's in the Bible.
Okay, so he's rewriting the Bible for his own ends.
All Christians do that. There's not one damn Christian out there that takes every word of the Bible absolutely seriously. As they're sitting around wearing their cotton blends and eating shellfish.
Right.
Which is always just stupid. All right. Number 7, don't make absurd assumptions about the atheist. This is ridiculously common. Not only just where they don't understand what atheists believe, and we have this problem all the time where they'll tell you what you believe, and if you don't fit into whatever definition they like for atheist, they'll tell you you're not an atheist. I don't get these people. It's like saying, well, you don't fit into what my personal definition for Christian is, so therefore you're not a Christian. And they'll shit their pants. Or had somebody tell me that Hitler wasn't a Christian, and even after you presented all the lines where Hitler was saying, I am a Christian, I have always been a Christian, everything I do is because I'm a Christian, they still say, nope, he can't possibly be a Christian because he doesn't fit into my definition of what a Christian is. These people are just idiots.
Yeah. I mean, it's that denial thing that they're all in. That denial of the real world. What was I just seeing? Because I just saw that about Hitler, and they were talking about Stalin. I mean, he had a Christian upbringing, I guess, whatever the Russian Orthodox, and I guess his mother was disappointed that he didn't become a priest. He ended up going into politics. Did he go in politics? I don't know. But anyhow, okay, in Dawkins' book, he talks. That's where I just kind of finished that book. I've got so many books in my head, but anyhow. It's, there's like that, it goes back to that denial of the real world. The real world scares them for some strange reason. It's, the reality, maybe it's fear of, that their belief, we're basically attacking their belief system and their belief structure. So that's gotta be a bit unnerving to these people too, that, they've been brought up to believe that Hitler was an atheist, Stalin was an atheist, only to find out,
Stalin was an atheist, but that had nothing to do with what he did.
Right.
And these people, they will sit down, and even after it's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that Hitler was a Christian, they will refuse to believe that. But they will turn around and say just because Stalin was an atheist that everything that he did was based on his atheism, which of course they can't produce a single quote by Stalin that would even suggest that. That's like saying that, he killed millions of people because he had a mustache. It's just a ridiculous claim, but they can't back any of it up. It fits into their argument, so they make it up. We were talking earlier about theists just making shit up because it sounded good. It's just another case of that.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, number 8. Don't tell the atheist you're going to pray for them. Well, I really don't care about that one. If you want to tell me you're going to pray for me, that's fine. I'll tell you I'm going to think for you, and somebody ought to. And we'll kind of go on from there. I don't care if you can make whatever ridiculous sounds you want. You can talk to yourself for me. I don't care. It doesn't affect me at all. Unlike a lot of atheists, I don't get pissed off when they go, you're going to hell. Okay. That's like saying I'm going to Narnia. Whatever.
Yeah. It means nothing to us. I mean, of course, if there is a hell, I think all my friends are going to be there.
Yeah. You always take hell for company.
Yeah.
I have no problem going to hell if my choice is between spending eternity, kissing the ass of God or going to hell with all the really cool people. See you in hell.
Yeah.
I'm going. All right. Number 9, don't copy and paste apologetic arguments. I think this is a massive problem. Lots of theists do it. They'll go over to Answers in Genesis or, any one of the classic apologist pages, and they'll just copy something. And as soon as you ask them questions about it, they don't have a clue what they're talking about. They just copied it off of some page.
they can't think for themselves. They go to somebody else's, and then when they're challenged on it, the brain farts. I mean,
well, it's not that the brain farts, it's that they don't even understand what they're talking about. They're just throwing out an argument because somebody else said it. It's got to be worth something. But they don't actually understand what it is they're claiming or what it is they're arguing. They're just like going to the dictionary and just picking up, copying random words out of the dictionary and throwing it on a page going, hey, I found this in a book. It's got to be worth something.
Yep. I'm always trying to be careful with those. Yeah, I can't think of anything.
Well, my thing is as soon as I see somebody doing that, I always tell them, it's really cool that you found this other argument. If they want to come debate me, that's cool. When you have your own arguments, come on back and let me know. But I'm not going to debate by proxy with somebody else because you can't actually debate anything because you don't understand what's being talked about in the first place. All right, and finally, substitute another faith in your argument before you present it. If it works for all faiths, it's not a defense of your own. God, I wish they'd do this. This would solve 99% of all theistic arguments. Because it works no matter what you put into it. Most arguments, you can throw in leprechauns, you can throw in Bigfoot, aliens, the Loch Ness monster, the flying spaghetti monster. It doesn't matter. It works for all of them because it's just a random claim without any support.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I guess it goes back to coming up with your own thoughts,
Well, I think these people need to test their own arguments before they make them. A lot of them will come up with some kind of a pithy quote or something that they act like, wow, this means something, and they throw it out there, and it gets shredded immediately because it really means nothing. It's completely empty and brainless. And then they'll just go back and do it again. They'll go, wow, this sounds good, and they'll keep throwing this nonsense out there, and it just makes them look like an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always trying to be careful when I do my research on, for my other podcast. I'm plowing through books. I'm going, okay, I need something I go, I need some more backup for this part. I think this is good this is a good position, things like that. And I kind of work through the ideas, I'm trying to tackle the JFK assassination, and I'm reading the Warren Commission, and it's like, and then saying, okay, so why are, this conspiracy guy saying this? It says, okay, and then you try to work those arguments. I mean, it takes work, and apparently maybe these people are just so arrogant to think that, hey, my idea is right no matter what. So I can steal from this page. I can do, and and maybe even thinking they can make assumptions that, hey, all religions are like, whatever, cause it's like automatic that, again, the faith, their argument's always going to be right type of attitude. And until someone comes along and says, well, no, that's not what it means, or,
Yeah, but they don't care. That's the thing, is they present this argument because it's an argument, and as soon as anybody disagrees, they ignore the people that disagree. Because they don't know anything about the argument, they're just making it sound, because it sounds good.
Right.
Most of these people have never thought about their religions. They're not actually saying, this is the argument that convinced me. I will go out and I'll tell people, give me your best argument. Give me the argument that convinced you that your claim is factually true. And they can never come up with anything. They'll throw out something ridiculous. I'll shred it. And they'll go, oh, wait. How about this one? No, I said give me your best shot. You had one shot. You failed. You don't get to just keep trying random arguments until you come up with one that works. I don't know. I mean, all of these arguments, I agree with all of them. I think that this guy made a pretty good list. But the one thing that I note is that any theist that actually followed these 10 arguments, they couldn't be arguing with an atheist.
Yeah.
Because religion is just dead in the water as soon as they do that.
Well, I mean, I think the first sentence says it all. I mean, religion is faith. I mean, that's the important aspect of religion. You're taking upon faith that your pastors, your your rabbis, your imams, all these people are, you're kind of putting faith into them, and they're putting faith in that this God exists, and all this effort everyone's put into it is correct, or it's the right thing because my faith says this. I mean, and that's a pillar of religion. One of the pillars. You take that pillar away, all of a sudden things start falling apart. Then it's, I mean, I would think it'd be game over. I mean, it doesn't, for a lot of people, that they may be able to they might want to keep arguing, but 90% of your argument disappears when you take faith out of the equation.
Right. And unfortunately in the real world, faith means nothing. That's the problem, is that faith is a pointless, empty, worthless exercise when it comes to reality, because reality doesn't require faith.
Right.
I don't know. All right. Well, do you think we should wrap it up for the week?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the clock here.
All right. Well, that was fun, but now it's done. Another episode in the bag. We'd like to ask you, our loyal listeners, if you like shows more focused on religion or on politics or on a mix of the two. As always, your input is important to us. We're not just saying that to fill airtime. We've already filled enough. We really do want to know what you think. You can interact with us on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, YouTube, or on our website at report.jdragononline.com. You can listen to the show on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Please, 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 please let us know what you think and tell your friends. We can't get better without the input of people like you. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in another 7 days with more conservative atheist goodness. See you then.
Good night.
You've been listening to the Bitchspot Report podcast with your hosts, Cephas and Mike. You can follow us on Twitter respectively at Bitchspot1 or at JDRipper1962. Please visit our website at report.jdragononline.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/thebspot We're also on Google+, iTunes, and YouTube. Those links are at our website. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us via email at report@jdragononline.com. Comments, ideas, and suggestions are always welcome. We'll be back next week with another fun and fact-filled episode. Please tune in again.